Hey everyone, Steven here from Unhappily Now, and today is part 3, day 3 of my 4-part video breakdown of the self-titled debut EP, its content, themes, lyrics, and structure. Today is song 3, Marching Through Your Madness, and I can start off pretty quickly and easily by saying that it is definitely a continuation of everything I've discussed in the first 2 videos so far. So I like to think of this as though, if our time was taken, is ending with that sense of chaos with the outro and the screaming guitar over top of it. That Marching Through Your Madness is a sense of trying to regroup, reestablish some stability, and that transition into the song, the song starts with this weird disjointed sound, and that's actually the kalimba sound that I used on that song. And I frankly it's easy for me to refer to it as a crazy kalimba, because that is what is setting the tone on the song. That kalimba sound, that madness, is the defining point of the song. That's how it starts. It sets the tone for what is to come. So coming out of all of what has been presented in the first song, and then building on that with the example of the second song, In Our Time Mistaken, we essentially find the speaker in a state of hearing this noise, hearing this madness in their life, and reflecting on everything from the previous 2 songs, if you want to think of it that way. So you can definitely tell, like I'm sitting here reading the lyrics, thinking through the process here, that you can definitely see the speaker reflecting on what has happened to them. But being a little more assertive about their state of mind and their place in the world. So the point of this song is, and how it's set up is I'm establishing this sense of like, here's this madness happening. And the speaker, it starts with, you only hear this madness and everything kind of sounds weird and disjointed. I know that the bass line I came up with that is somewhat odd. And then when you hear the introductions of the piano part I have in there, it's kind of weird, it's odd, it's a little disjointed. On a personal level, I kind of feel like this song leans a little bit more towards my industrial rock influences that I've had in my life, with how it has this odd sound and odd structure to it. But when you look at the progression of the song, it starts with that madness, and then more and more gets introduced. You hear the bass get introduced, and then essentially like you have the madness, and then you have more developing over top of the madness, and there is a point to that, because the more layering that occurs over top of the madness, if you really give a good listen, starts to get pushed further and further into the background. So the madness is present, the speaker is reflecting on it. The speaker is essentially trying to assert itself and overcome. And you gradually start to see the actual concept of the sound of marching through your madness. Because once I have the drum part introduced, it is quite literally a marching band kind of sound with that pattern I use. And I know when I was throwing this over to Dan to have him work on the drum parts for me, I told him, like, please, like do your thing, but leave this exactly the way it is. It's on purpose. But the second half, I let him have fun with that because I frankly had a hard time with it anyway, and he really blew that away, the whole second half for me. But coming back to what I was just saying, there is this sense of madness, and then all these other instruments and layering are introducing the speaker, and the speaker essentially asserting himself, saying like, hey, you know, this is what happened. Your madness is not going to hold me back. You know, essentially the speaker is kind of reflecting on the sense of being kind of stuck, so to speak. So that is again a reflection of the meanings and concepts of the band itself and the title track, the sense of being stuck. But, you know, you have the speaker essentially feeling stuck in the song, not being able to have their voice, not being able to, you know, overcome, but they're trying, and they're reflecting, and they're reflecting on that sense of like, hey, you know, where is our goodbye? There was a chance for it. Where is that? Like, why was that taken from me? And it just you know, you have those words, that voice starting to layer with the other parts, starting to take more control back, and it's literally a slow progression of the speaker actually marching, literally with the, you know, marching band kind of sounding figuratively with the content and the metaphors and the themes here through this other entity's madness. So when you see the progression there, it starts with madness. You see some layering. The layering has a disjointed sound to it because it's all still a reflection of, you know, what the speaker is going through. And, you know, you see the speaker emphasizing these thoughts, these reflections, these feelings, and starting to assert themselves and being like I said, you know, this is what happened to me. This is what you put me through. But where is our goodbye at the end of the day? And it just builds and builds and builds during the first half of the song there. And then just all of a sudden, you know, slam right into that transition section, which is kind of multifunctional because, you know, I have this sense of like marching through the madness. That first half has that, like, speakers kind of having to struggle through the madness, so to speak. And the marching's like they're marching through it. They're holding to their own. They're doing their best to push through. And then that transition is kind of, you know, you see the sound of the madness falls away because the speaker has put their foot down and they're having their voice heard, and they're emphasizing all the things that have happened to them. All the content of the bridge and the outro, just, you know, hey, you did this, you left me alone, I couldn't see that this was going to happen, but apparently you were gone a long time ago, and that now, in this moment, I'm marching through your madness, I'm here, and, you know, you need to stop. Like, this isn't about you anymore, this is about me moving forward now. And, you know, in my head, I just kind of envision this as if you were to see like a marching band going down the street, like it starts with like you see the procession coming up the street, and just kind of imagine like maybe the sense of like the madness is there, and then this marching procession starts to overtake that madness in front of you more and more and more until the whole band is there, and then the whole band just, consider the band almost like the layering that happens in the song, and then it just plows through the madness, marches through it, literally marches through it, and overtakes it. The band becomes the voice. And it's kind of like, in my head, it's almost a metaphor like that to represent what's going on, where it's coming out of nowhere. You hear it in the distance. It starts to overtake this madness, plows through the madness. It has its voice. It has its say. And then it keeps processing onward and beyond. And that's kind of what like the transition section through the outro is it's this sense of like, taking that initiative, taking that control back, having that voice back, and saying, this is what I've been through, but I'm marching through this madness. I'm doing it now. It's time for me to have my voice and my say again. And that's the thing. There's like this element to the song where the speaker essentially has been forced to tolerate the madness, and in a sense of like self-preservation. But then through the second half, it's saying, no, this is gonna be this way no more. So it continues to process through that madness. It overcomes the madness. The madness drifts into the background, goes away, and you get the sense of what I'm doing there. We talk about like these themes at the time, and there is a massive shift in the dynamics there. It goes from this march into this establishing this new sense of time, this new presence that is just saying like, hey, this is me now. I'm in control. It's just like a complete dynamic shift to emphasize the emotion and feeling of taking control back. So that shift in time and the vibe, like it's all the same tempo and everything, like it's all the same timing signature. It's just I changed how it feels, and that's par for the course with what I've mentioned here with the themes so far. But so not only does it shift how the time feels, but it shifts how it sounds. Like it goes from that weird disjointed sound in the first half to this newly established vibe. It's very assertive, and then it's a lot more focused, cohesive. And there's all those introductions of the different guitar parts and layering, and you hear the progressions, you hear the bridge and outro sections. It's almost, they're spoken as almost like a mantra, I would say, of reaffirming like what has happened and what the speaker is now doing to overcome. And that just continues through to the end, and similar to the first two songs, it winds up having this, like, essentially a guitar solo section that continues the conveyance of those emotions. And that alone is a very drastic shift in the song, because it barely has anything that sounds like that winds up being almost like a mildly bluesy guitar solo. But there was nothing like that in the first half of the song. But I feel like I tried very hard to make it a logical progression throughout the song to lead it to that point, of marching through the madness, being through the madness. And then, honestly, really give credit to Dan for his drum work on the second half of that song, because he really found things in there I didn't know were there that helped build up towards the ending. So I want to thank Dan for that, because he really showed the development of the actual marching through the madness. and to the point that there's that final build-up with the drums that goes right into my scream. And my scream there at the end has no distinct word to it. It's just saying, you know, I'm plowing through this now. I'm moving forward now. And it just, the voice plows through the madness finally and takes ownership of, you know, what is going on. And again, all this is very deliberate. And if you, even the ending there, I have it fade out. And the fade out is essentially to help really drive home that point of, like that marching band metaphor I used, where the madness was there, we start to take back control, then we really established assertiveness with the speaker, and the speaker is pushing through the madness, the speaker is through the madness, and then they're screaming past it and beyond. So they've essentially kind of literally marched through the madness. So if you listen to it, like, really listen to the development, it's all built into the song. It's very deliberate, and it really helps drive home all those concepts, themes, and points I just made about how, you know, the different songs tie together, how the themes and progressions tie together, and that, you know, what I just described about that, how the song really is a representation of marching through someone's madness and then screaming through it and processing beyond into that new sense of identity, is how that song ends. And like I said, I touched on how the time shifting happens in there a little bit, at least as far as how it feels. And again, there's references of a sense of loss, a sense of where's our chance to say goodbye, and essentially all those themes kind of come into play here, just like with the first two songs. So it's a logical progression in my opinion, and there's a little bit more of that as we head into the fourth song, Whispering, Wandering, Struggling, parts 1 and 2. That one's a little more direct. That one's coming up tomorrow. I will get into that with a more thorough breakdown during tomorrow's video, but I hope this information today was helpful for everyone to get a sense of how the EP starts to intertwine and how it becomes a cohesive body of work with the themes and the elements and the concepts and the lyrical structure and just fundamental song structures themselves, how things were done a certain way on purpose to kind of set the tone, and how you'll see when we get through the last video how not only does it all come together, but it is intended to loop right back to the beginning. So that's all I have for now, but I will talk to you guys tomorrow with the fourth song, the fourth video of this breakdown. So thanks again. I'll see you then.